For our first session of the day, I'm proud to introduce Jim Reavis, CEO of the Cloud Security Alliance, in a Fireside Chat with Qualys President and CEO Sumedh Thakar as they discuss the ever-evolving landscape of cloud security trends. Gentlemen?
Thank you very much, David. If there was any doubt ever about the importance of cloud security, I think David did a fantastic job of making sure that we're all thinking about it right now. I'm super excited for this fireside chat because any conversation about cloud security is never going to be complete without the OG of cloud security, the founder and CEO of Cloud Security Alliance, Jim Reavis, being part of the conversation. So, Jim, welcome to the fireside chat.
Well, thank you very much, Sumedh, and thank you for being a founding member of Cloud Security Alliance way back in 2009. And certainly it's been awesome to see how you guys have grown and become such a critical part of our industry.
Yeah, 15 years, and it's been a fun journey. So congratulations, this is your 15th year since founding. So I remember back in the day when Qualys had this crazy idea that we wanted to do this thing, which back in the day we did not know was going to be called cloud in the future. It was just application service providers, something like that. But we had this vision that we can, really provide amazing capabilities and scalability, leveraging what now is called the cloud. When you started looking at that and really worked to figure out, the security of this cloud thing is going to be very important because the trust in our digital assets, especially when it comes to cloud, is going to be paramount in the increased usage of this cloud world that we live in and the digital transformation that has been driven by the cloud. So it's been great to see the journey that you guys have been in working with so many different organizations globally. So maybe start off by giving us an update on what are the things that you are currently seeing out there as you talk to customers, and what are the things that you're focusing on, highlighting on. We had last quarter Troy Leach coming out here and really talking about what you guys are doing with mapping, CSA, PCI, etc. So great addition to the team out there. But I'm really curious from you as you're talking to a lot of the companies out there, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me that opportunity. And it is pretty interesting because there's such a diversity of the levels of maturity and adoption of cloud. It's been interesting that I've been doing maybe more 101 presentations in the last couple of years because you see this big wave that wasn't present for a few years. And then there's other organizations that literally, when we started the organization, they started their journey into the cloud. So, but I think some of the common things you see are certainly every type of organization just has so much more data than they did before, so much more automation in their organizations, and so much more complexity in terms of regulatory requirements, privacy protection, so many different things. So you do see organizations that are looking at a few key things. And one is how can we look at how we are more efficient in automating our compliance, for example? How are we better able to track our data, our assets across a wide spectrum, if it's cloud or if it's IoT or if it's other things like that? How do we make sure that we are modernizing what we're doing? So when we started with cloud, when I call it Cloud 1.0, it was this new on-demand business model, but it was providing traditional services, compute, virtual machine, storage, which those were around, back even way before we started. And as it evolved, like in the mid 2010s, you saw really what I call cloud native, and the containerization, serverless functions, all of these sorts of areas. And so, organizations are really trying to get understanding of that, because that's the level either they're implementing now if they were on Cloud 1.0, or if they're new to it, they're moving in those directions. But like understanding like what is the risk profile here, how are we in this new realm making sure that we're enabling the business. And you mentioned STAR. So Cloud Security Alliance, we created a controls framework, a set of standards, and a program for organizations to show their compliance. And kind of breaking through that sort of understanding of cloud really is inclusive of these big hyperscalers, as well as every small SaaS company that's built on top of those platforms. People understanding that sort of shared responsibility and how they need to communicate in a real clear way. That's been like our most popular area of like research and download artifacts. So if you're a customer of cloud, or you are a big cloud provider, or you're in the middle of building technology services on those platforms, you understand the areas, your domains of responsibility. And so we can all sort of communicate that transparently so people can understand the risks. So you mentioned like PCI, that's a key area. That's a mapping. We've been continuing to update with the newest versions there. And so we have that coming out. Mapping this with NIST and the cybersecurity framework is also really important, because that kind of gives you this sort of life cycle thinking about how security programs should work. So a lot of work there. The things that like we see, I'm sure we'll talk a lot about AI, generative AI. That's obviously a big area of emphasis. But zero trust we found that made a really big sort of comeback in people's understanding of important practice. It was kind of when the pandemic started, and we got to go work from home. And well, some of our security controls actually depended on you being in the office. And if you can't be in the office, we need to come up with some new paradigms. And they sort of rediscovered zero trust. So doing that, and taking this cloud native thinking to our best practices, and really trying to contextualize this in how we comply, how we manage risks, and everything else. So those are some of the key areas. So we're trying to be on the leading edge, but at the same time working and helping and enabling the organizations who are just getting started in cloud.
That's amazing to kind of hear the journey, right? If I kind of go back to how cloud moved from being, hey, this little something on the side that we use as part of the business, to today it's becoming transformational to business for almost everybody. And so if you're not leveraging the cloud for digital transformation, it's truly impacting you from a competitive perspective, because your competition is leveraging that and they're moving much faster in the digital world. And we saw that with Uber and a bunch of other companies that truly leverage cloud as a way to really have an amazing differentiator. And so I think that's caused a lot of people, and when we talk to our customers, it's caused a lot of people to jump in very quickly in cloud. And you see the journey that people have gone through, where they just want to move fast, and security is something that they don't know. And so you kind of have this some people who started 15 years ago when you guys started working on this in the cloud, and then you have a lot of people jumping in this year, last year, and kind of like you have the haves and have nots. And so you kind of have these knows and knows not, right? People who really don't know cloud security, and they're trying to figure out, well, where do I start? And so a lot of our work has been, how do you read through this alphabet soup of CWPP and CNAP and all these different things that people are using to say, well, where do I start, right? What are the basic things that we should do, and where do we start to really say, I can't jump in and do everything. How do I focus on some of the key areas? So maybe if you can tell a little bit about how CSA Star is something that people have been leveraging from a cloud security perspective as stepping stones, so you can have a maturity level journey, rather than just trying to jump in and swim around finding your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about taking a risk-based approach and understanding what's important to the organization, there's certainly different sorts of levels that people look at. And you could even think of it, and sometimes it's literally so, they take a maturity model approach. But if you look at what we have in STAR at sort of a high level, it's 17 domains, and control frameworks, they tend to have hundreds of controls. We do as well. Some of them are in the thousands, but if you look at 17 domains and understand identity, like web application security, developer responsibilities, then you can sort of start and say, okay, to what degree does our organization depend on that specific domain? So 17 domains is pretty digestible. So an organization that they are producing cloud services, they can start, which is, we sort of took this inspiration from PCI who came before us, is you could self-assess. You could do a self-assessment and you could post that on our STAR registry if you are a cloud provider, and then people can examine that. And that really helps you from needing to respond to every company's own inquiry, their own questionnaire in order to do business. And that's a big sort of trend we've seen over time is large enterprises have said, oh, we'll just use the CSA questionnaire. It really does the same thing as what we have. And maybe we'll follow up on 5 or 10%. So that's if you're a technology company seeking to respond, you can start with the 17 domains, and then you can go through all of the different controls and questions and answer that. Now, if you're an organization that's a cloud user, adopter of any size, we spend a lot of time with enterprises. You really have to understand the idea of the shared responsibility. And you never escape responsibility for these things. You try to make sure you understand, again, from a risk management perspective, how do my technology partners, how do the software companies in the cloud that I'm using, how do they impact my risk profile? And so you kind of take that same sort of journey. You understand, okay, identity is crucial. I need multi-factor authentication. Okay, how well is that supported? How is passwordless? How are those things supported within the different organizations that I want to partner with? So then you can kind of do that, and you can get as granular as you want. So our program also has third-party auditing, all the big four, all the big ISO certification bodies. They also will do the auditing according to our standards and give you a SOC 2 or an ISO 27001. So that's the program. Aspirationally, I think we see ourselves going into where this is more continuously monitored, probably with technology, with what you provide, Sumedh, at Qualys. We're going to need that sort of automation as we go further in understanding the risks and being able to do that. But that's what STAR provides, and it gives you a pretty easy entree point. And then it's how important different areas are, how important your data is, how existential the risks are that you determine, how rigorous do our compensating controls need to be.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm going to get a little bit on my soapbox about risk management as a key part of any cybersecurity, because today cyber risk is business risk. And what's interesting is that a lot of you have your practitioners who are excited about the individual tools that they're using, their CSPM solutions, etc. And then you have the CISOs, and increasingly the CISOs are saying, look, my role is really to be able to communicate the risk of the digital infrastructure back to the business, right? What is the risk of that infrastructure getting hacked or attacked or ransomware to the business? And of course, cloud is becoming a bigger and bigger part of that. And so, as we've always had in the traditional environment, and wherever there is honey, you're going to have honeybees. And so, as soon as you start seeing cloud becoming mainstream, the regulators are coming right away, right, to say, oh, well, you still need to be compliant. And then you get into the age-old religious debate about security versus compliance. Is being compliant means are you secure or not? But I think you give the great example of PCI, where the PCI mandates really made people focus a lot more on security. Just that meeting the mandate didn't mean you were actually 100% secure, but overall maturity increased quite a bit. And so when we are having conversations with customers, they see that, oh my God, in the cloud again, I have so many signals, I have so many buckets and RDS and virtual machines and this and that and identity. And so the compliance sort of view is one view, but how do I take a risk-based approach? How do I really map out to say what's really important that is causing risk to my cloud environment, right? And this is something that with our total cloud solution that we focused on, what we recently talked about is how do I give you a risk measurement or a risk view? So yeah, you might have thousands and thousands of virtual machines and buckets, but can I highlight the 5 or 10 things that priority wise you should really take care of, because those are the most vulnerable, those have the most amount of critical data in them. So you can start your journey from that. And then the question becomes, okay, how do I then get a mapping of that to show that I'm also being compliant at the same time with the requirements and the regulations? And so I think that's where Troy talked about this. I think mapping that to CIS and mapping that to PCI, etc., is brilliant. NIST, etc., is brilliant, because then you can basically say, look, CSA STAR provides the framework of compliance as well as sort of maturity scale, but you can now easily translate that into compliance reporting that your regulators need. So I think that's quite interesting. And if you see the more recent SEC mandates that have come out for disclosure are really, they don't talk about a specific infrastructure, a specific technology, but they do expect the security organization and the C-level, the CISO, to be able to articulate what is the risk for the company and is that risk material. And I thought what was interesting is when they recently came out to say, doesn't matter where your data is, whether it's on-prem, your laptop, your cloud, or even if it is in a SaaS provider's database, if your data is with the SaaS provider's database, you are still responsible for ensuring that it is being held securely. And this in many ways has been the bane for many SaaS providers, is somebody's SaaS, somebody's cloud is somebody's SaaS, right? And so you get bombarded with all these vendor questionnaires from everybody trying to ask you to fill out all these questionnaires to make sure that their data is safe, etc. So we address that in a very interesting way with our Total Cloud 2.0, where we now include SaaS security. So your O365, your Salesforce configurations can be made sure that they are done well, so that data is not leaked through that. But today, when you guys look at that, right, how are you sort of looking at this mapping, and is there a way that you're moving forward where this can simplify things for a SaaS provider, where a certification or some form of like, hey, here's a certificate or some form of acceptable documentation that says, look, I have all these controls, you talked about that, well in place, they are validated internally or validated by an external entity, and because of that, I don't need to have each and every of my customers come out and do an assessment on me. And I think that would really be something that a lot of providers in the B2B space would be looking for.
Yeah, I think that it is complex with SaaS, but what we have done fundamentally is when we look at our controls framework and the domains that I talked about, and the mapping is so very important. The other thing that we thought through is applicability. And what is the scope of applicability for different sort of classifications of cloud? And essentially by us, and this was one of sort of where we had, I thought, an innovation on top of the NIST definition, as we looked at SaaS think of that as a few technology layers on top of the infrastructure as a service cloud. And so when you think about it that way, you can certainly narrow down the things that a SaaS company needs to do. So say a SaaS company, they're on top of AWS or Azure or GCP, and you look at the areas that they focus on in doing their own STAR assessment, it should map and be like a Lego to fit in. Say if it's AWS, if they say, hey, this is not applicable, we don't own the data center, we don't own these layers, And then you look at, okay, how did AWS answer? And if they answered the questions that that one said was not applicable, then you see they fit. So that scope of applicability, that's part of what our whole shared security responsibility model. And we think that becomes like really important. And then, as a consumer, you should want to know in any case, hey, which clouds, which data centers, availability zones. Maybe I've got data sovereignty issues with different countries and things like that. So the way we kind of laid this out, it really does give the buyer an ability to go, look at those different areas. So, SaaS, again, by being that full application, there is some areas of where you don't have that direct access to understand, okay, what does the data backup look like? What's that scheme look like? How are you protecting against ransomware? And so it's really important that we have technology enablement, like what you are doing, to really provide that additional information, because we have so much data, we have so many different data points. It's like you were saying, the signal to noise it's really at a bad point right now. And so, and we try not to get too hung up on the different category names because they're actually changing so quickly right now. But thinking of cloud native, and then definitely thinking of like SaaS, security posture management, and being able to like understand and say, okay, this SaaS application appears to be configured in a way that fits what you're trying to do, but there may be some certain things that the end user is still responsible for, like properly configuring their identity, their multi-factor, all those sorts of things. But yeah, I'm really sort of interested in sort of what you're seeing because organizations can like assume the wrong thing is really a risk when it's actually very well protected. And I think you kind of need that context, don't you, of getting a lot of different data feeds, a lot of different points of reference to actually give you a good consolidated view of where the risks are, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and this is really what we've been focusing on the last couple of years. Is what we call as the True Risk platform from Qualys, where there's too many signals, and when you take these signals out of context, they might seem like very important, but they may not be from a business perspective, right? And so you might have many cloud accounts, and if you just talk about cloud as an example, and you're getting, oh, this bucket is configured incorrectly, and all kinds of signals. But if you haven't really done that work of mapping it to an actual exploit that is happening out in the wild, so you gotta have to have like, okay, I have all my signals, then I have my threat intelligence, what are the attackers doing out there. So we build that into the platform, so you don't have to go get 10 different things. Then the second part, which is the biggest part from a context perspective, is the business context, right? I might have a whole bunch of failures on controls showing up on a bucket, but if I have that, do I have that bucket mapped to my business application, my business unit, right? So if it is a account that maps to a lab environment, that is, if the loss is worth $2 million, that's a very different conversation for a company versus if that bucket is part of a critical application, which is $500 million a year. And very few customers today, like leaders, are really able to get to that point. But at the end of the day, that is really what matters, because your prioritization on what you're going to focus on fixing is going to be based on how important is the loss to the business, right? And in many ways, SEC's materiality concept really fits into that, is that when you get that alert on bucket C725-61 has some malicious activity, are you able to automatically and directly map it to the business value, and that will tell you whether this is material or not. And so a lot of what our customers are talking about, help me do the same in the cloud. I have too many accounts, too many signals, I can't go fix everything. Can I leverage more automation so you can automatically fix things? Can I leverage, which is what we've been focusing on with 2.0. But the big ask really has been, give me a risk view and then give me a compliance view. Because what is my risk of non-compliance? That's also another risk that people are tracking, right? How do I make sure that I get the risk view, I get the compliance view, and how do I get a more holistic view? So a lot of times we think of cloud security risk as something in the account is misconfigured, okay?
Mhm.
However, you might have an account that is absolutely perfectly configured correctly, no issues with that, but the admin who's accessing that account on their laptop has some malicious malware on it, and the secrets to log into your cloud account are stored on that laptop. If you're
Mhm.
not tracking the risk of that laptop also being compromised, that now the attackers directly have your credentials. They don't need to hack into your account through any other crazy means. So how do you get this holistic view, which is that's an area of struggle for everybody. And so recently, what we did in our Total Cloud 2.0 release was this concept of toxic combinations. Is that by itself a bucket might have an issue, by itself a laptop might have an issue, by itself a virtual machine might have an issue,
Mhm.
but does a combination of those three map to the business create a much more significant risk than each individual element by itself, right? And so this true risk insights that we call is something that people are asking us quite a bit about. And that then expands into, like, today we cannot have a conversation about anything in security or anything else without talking about AI, right? And I'm sure you guys are getting a lot of, like,
Yep.
help me guide through AI. So we get a lot of those questions as well, and that's where we did the acquisition of Blue Hexagon to bring in the AI capabilities, because I think there was a lot of noise around when GPT came about and people were using that to write love letters and stuff like that. We had Valentine's Day recently, but one of the biggest use cases, if you have the right models, is the AI's ability to take a lot of information and use models to summarize it down
Mhm.
to something that is meaningful and usable. And so that's really an area that we are focusing on, to say how can we leverage the AI technology to narrow it down to something that is consumable. Because, like we talked about, for many customers that are not those top end of enterprise customers, they are really at the beginning part of the journey. They're just getting overwhelmed with a lot of cloud acronyms and noise and different types of things. So are you getting a lot of questions around AI and AI in the cloud and the security of those capabilities? Because I think you really cannot have a meaningful AI implementation without being in the cloud, given
Yep.
the scope of the compute and memory and everything that is needed. So curious how you were seeing that.
Yeah, we're seeing just a huge amount of interest in it, and every organization, every enterprise I talk to has one. They do have some restrictions on it because they are concerned about what it's going to be doing. But on the other hand, they have like centers of innovation to look at how can we keep up with our competition, how can we beat our competition, and they just know that this is really inevitable. And from a cybersecurity perspective, it's absolutely the same thing. I call it the co-pilotization of the cybersecurity industry, that I think everybody's needing to look, because look, we know the malicious actors are using this. They're starting to automate code scanning and find 0 days like faster. And so this is this is going to create like an explosion, I think, in what look like attacks. What there, a lot of it, again, it's going to be the noise, but the automation that's going to allow you to summarize this if you're doing threat hunting, to make like remediation very tuned to the specific environment that you have. You're going to be like, I think that every cybersecurity professional in 2 years from now is going to really be an expert in prompt engineering, to understand all this all works, and to do automation, all these scripts. So, I think we get to a point where we're going to need more like human beings in cybersecurity than ever before, but they are going to be using the automation to create a lot more closed loop processes, and to just have better scale, better accuracy in what they're doing. So we're standing up work to like create specific control frameworks for AI, to look at how these models, the LLMs, can be attacked directly, and prompt injection and all those things, but also a lot of time on how are we actually going to improve cybersecurity with AI. And I saw you, it was at one of our summits. years ago that you were talking about this, and so you were really ahead of your game. So I'm curious, like what you see happening. But we've gone like from people having no plans in this to like most organizations are like using this on a daily basis to like figure out what tasks they can automate and how they can stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, it's very similar to every single technology life cycle that we have seen, right? You saw cloud, and then everybody jumped into it without knowing what that means, and then people started feeling like they were pressured, and so people did lift and shift, and then finally settled into truly cloud native applications. We're seeing the same with AI right now, that everybody feels the pressure, got to do something with AI, don't know what exactly to do, and so people are dumping code in there to try to do something, and that's creating a bunch of risk. And yeah, I think there is the risk of from an AI perspective, from a cybersecurity perspective. How do you scan your LLMs? And I think your working group that you talk about, I'm sure our teams are really working together on that one. But the bigger risk from a use of AI really right now we see is most of these malicious actors are really corporations. Corporations that are making money. We don't like the way they make money, but they run it like a corporation. They have people on staff, they have HR teams, they have appraisals and annual reviews, and they have bottom lines. And so they are leveraging AI to go out and look at all the different things that are out in the internet and identify, hey, what is going to be the least resistance servers out there that I can compromise with minimum effort, right? Instead of spraying and praying to say I have to go attack 1,000 things, so maybe one of them will actually get through. Can they go and leverage AI to speed up that so that they can jump into it? And I think that's really where the opportunity is. And the first set of opportunity that we are seeing is how do we as cybersecurity providers be there to give that view to the customers on, hey, looking at everything that you have, leveraging AI models, we can identify the most likely assets that are going to get compromised, or the assets that are going to pop up on the LLMs that are being run by the attackers based on what they see of your environment. And so you can go and fix that first. And it feels like it's a complete life cycle coming back to 22 years ago when vulnerability management really was pen testing, and then Qualys came in and we automated this concept of pen testing in a way, because we wanted to give you the view of what an attacker sees in your environment by looking at all the vulnerabilities, because the attacker was coming in manually looking at all of your vulnerabilities and deciding what was going to be attacked. So if we could scan that and give you that view up front, that was our focus. And so now, full circle back, we're back to saying, how can we leverage AI to look at all the data inventory signals that we have from a customer's environment and help them pinpoint the assets that are really critical to them, the assets that are really going to get compromised because of risk. And that's really kind of what we're seeing. So, these topics we can go and talk forever, Jim. But I know we have an amazing agenda lined up today. Again, going back to that, customers at the beginning of whether it's cloud or AI are trying to figure out what's a good starting point that actually gives me some benefit. I don't want to jump around, do so many different things, and then figure out that I missed a whole bunch of stuff, right? So that maturity model journey that you guys have been really pushing is very important. And I think that we are aligning ourselves to listening to customers, understanding a lot of them don't really have a great basis of what are the key things that they should focus on in cybersecurity when it comes to cloud. And I think a combination of those is really what is going to take us to the next level. And so I think great evolution I see coming for CSA in the near future, and we're excited to be partnering with that. And I hope all of you who are here continue to the rest of the agenda, because that's really going to help you get on a very crisp, precise journey of how you want to improve your cybersecurity. So, Jim, thank you again. Always a pleasure talking to you and exchanging these ideas, and continue to be a proud member of CSA. So we look forward to the collaboration, and look forward to meeting you again.
Thank you very much, Sumedh. Thank you for being a trusted partner for us, but also for the industry. And the more and more technology changes and the faster it goes, you need trusted partners out there. So thanks for being a very special one.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
All right. right. Thank you.